guys? Welcome back to another video. So this week we're going to be working on my 11 horsepower go-kart. So I've actually had this thing for a few years now. Me and my buddy built this thing a while back with a 6.5 Predator motor. It's actually sitting on the shelf over here. And a few months back I ended up taking that off and putting a 11 horsepower, I think it's a Honda GX340 on it with a air filter kit. Pretty simple little setup with torque converter, and this thing was a little too wild where all the weight was in the back, so I'm gonna barely put any weight on the back, and it just lifts up the front tire super easily. So you need to put a little wheelie bar on it, and ever since then kind of made this thing useless at that point. So I've been thinking about a couple ideas on how to bring this thing kind of back to life. So I've been wanting to kind of extend the frame a little bit right behind the seat and push the motor forward so it'll actually be in front of the axle instead of behind the axle. But in the meantime, I actually want to kind of get this thing running again and see if it'll actually run and drive. Now, one thing I do remember is it kept blowing out tires because it kept wanting to spin the tubes inside the rim. I remember this one, so you can kind of see there. The valve stem's just gone. It's somewhere inside the tire there, and this thing's flat. All the tires are flat. It's been sitting for probably 6 months at this point, so it's a little dirty. So I just want to get this thing running, see if make sure the motor still works, and then maybe try to drive around, maybe get another wheelie out of it before I pull it all back apart and actually cut the frame up, get this thing actually ripping again. I'm hoping to build this thing actually into a drift kart, because when we first built it, we actually wanted to have it as a drift kart. So put a hydro on there and it works super good. It locks up the rear tires no problem. We put a bunch of sleeves on the back and this thing drifted like crazy. I might be able to find some clips to slap in here, but this thing was a monster. So I really want to be able to drift on rubbers, which would be kind of the plan. So get this motor moved up so it kind of move the weight up a little forward, get some more weight on the front, because this thing does not like to turn at all without trying to like lean forward over the front end. So once we get the motor forward, it should equal out the weight balance, and this thing should actually be a ripper. So I'm gonna work on trying to get this thing running again and maybe take it for a rip. So surprisingly, this thing actually started up after like 2 or 3 pulls. I just had to remember how the kill switch went, because it's got a kill switch under here and then it's also got the normal one there. But this thing started up perfectly. I let it idle for like a minute just to make sure it sounded good. Everything was good. So I'm gonna get this thing started up, let her warm up a little bit, and show you guys. Let me see if I can get you guys propped up. Flip her on. So as you guys just saw, this thing still pulls some pretty dang good wheelies. This thing still rips pretty dang good. But you can hear in the first part that I kind of floored it. I think it's just got some low fuel in it, because I checked the fuel. It's got a little bit left and it smelled good, so I'm just gonna send it, see how it does, and I'm gonna have to drain the tank anyway, so save me draining some extra gas. But this thing still rips. It literally pulls wheelies like a foot off the ground, so it's a little sketchy to drive and likes to pull to the right. Gets a little squirrely, but luckily I got the wheel in there so it can kind of like drag it out. That might make sense why it's pulling to the right, because it's got the wheel on the left side, so shooting over to the right. But you might not be able to hear it in the video. The sprocket, like the chain on the sprocket, is literally just shearing the teeth off of it because this thing makes so much torque. It's only at 35 chain, so that was a big thing with this thing. I really needed to upgrade the sprocket on it to like a 420 chain, and then get a new sprocket for the torque converter. So that should be a pretty easy swap over. Just get a new split sprocket for the axle and then a new little sprocket for the jack shaft. So that's part I need to order up, but I do want to start tearing this thing down, getting the motor off of there, when I did build it, I literally just welded the plate to these couple little bars on here. So should be pretty easy to chop off, get that out of the way. Thinking about just chopping the frame right around here on each side. It's just 2 bars, so I should be able just to slip like a tube in the inside that's really thick, make it nice and strong, and then just lengthen this thing out about like a foot, maybe 2. I do want to get the torque converter swapped over to the back side instead of being mounted on the front here. Get it mounted to the back so I can get an idea of the size I'm going to need to at least extend the frame, get it in front of the axle as much as possible, so get some weight more moved forward. And I'm hoping I don't have to extend the brake cable at all, but if anything, I can just remount the reservoir and make a little extension to the handles. So that should be pretty simple. So I'm gonna get to work, tearing the motor down, getting some parts off of this thing, and see what we're looking at. So I got the go-kart put up on some wood in the back, and I got a little block under the front just to save it from rolling off of it. Then I tore the motor off pretty quick. Got the throttle cable, a couple motor mount bolts, and then the chain. Pulled it right off the motor plate here. Now you can kind of get a better idea of what I'm looking at. Just got a couple welds on each side, so that should be pretty quick to chop off. And then you guys can actually see the sprocket now. It's got a few teeth on this side left, but on this side, it's starting to look pretty wore down. So I'm gonna count how many teeth this thing has, or if I can find the number on it, I'm just gonna find it. And then I can order up about the same size sprocket and a 420 chain, and then just swap the sprocket on the torque converter. And then should have a bigger chain on this thing, so I ain't gonna worry about it slipping the chain anymore. But I do want to start working on the motor, getting the torque converter swapped around so I can get an idea of how big this motor package is going to be. So then I can start figuring out how much I'm going to need to extend the frame, get the frame chopped out, and then actually start mocking it all up with the motor in the middle and see, kind of get a rough idea what this thing's going to look like. So I've been spending some time trying to get the torque converter mounted up on the motor here, but I keep running into an issue where none of these bolt holes will line up, and this thing just keeps running into the oil spout right here and the fins for the head. So I chopped that down so I can give me a little bit of clearance. It worked, but not enough to get any of these holes line up. I get like 1 line up and then the other 3 won't. So I watched the video, and a lot of people are just like ovaling these holes out and running washers. Don't really like that idea, and it will take a lot of time. So I think I'm gonna save that for another day, since I got a couple clutches for this motor anyways. I think a clutch will be more than enough to kind of move this cart around, give me enough torque to accelerate it, no problem. And especially with the clutch, it really centers the motor up in the frame. You can kind of tell it's right on the edge there, and it still needs to go over to the right a hair, and it's just hitting that bar there. So once it gets over to the right, just to line up that sprocket completely, it should be right center in the frame, and I'm really liking that, especially since this engine plate has a couple extra holes. If anything, I can just slide the motor over with the torque converter on there, and it should line up close enough. So if anything, I can do that in the near future. So I think I'm gonna start working on getting the motor plate all chopped off, getting the frame chopped in half, start extending it out, seeing where the motor's gonna sit in the center, and then start mocking up, getting some bars in there, and figuring out how this thing's gonna look. So I wanted to get a little progress update before I go chopping off the seat back and chopping the frame in half. So I got the engine plate chopped off the back there, and then I also ended up chopping off the whole rear section here, because this is kind of useless at this point. I might end up chopping off that U section and then welding it on the back here, so it kind of has a little bit of a back bumper. But got the sprocket and the brake off of there, so should be pretty easy just to chop that right in half. Might have to pull the wheels off and give me a little bit more room in there. I know you guys are probably going to tell me just to get some new mounts and then rebuild this whole rear section, just simple, but a little cheap, and I don't feel like waiting on new axle mounts so then I can weld that on. So I'd rather just cut this in half, slide it back a little bit, add some bars in the middle, and then I can do a couple sideways bars to connect the frame together, strengthen it up, and then also mount up the engine plate here, and then should go together pretty smoothly. So I want to try to get this done in a couple days, so let's get cracking on this thing, get this thing chopped in half, and then I can actually start lengthening it out. So I got the go-kart all dragged back in the garage, got a quick little mock-up going. I ended up chopping off the back already and the little seat bar, and then I found some pipe in my garage that kind of fit in there, so it can kind of give me a good idea. I do need to pick up the right pipe either later today or tomorrow so I can get this thing kind of actually mocked up for real, and then get these pipes all welded in. But this is about how it's gonna look. Seat's gonna rest right under the gas tank there, so it'll at least save me from adding that bar back in behind the seat. should make it pretty quick. And then I'm just gonna add a couple extra bars in the center there where the engine plate's gonna sit. So that should at least strengthen up the frame and then give me a spot to mount the motor on there. But I'm liking how the axle's tucked right under the engine there and should still give me a little bit of room to move it forward and back. I did find out what size the sprocket was that was on there already. That was a 35 chain and it's a 72 tooth. So I ended up ordering, the closest I can find was a 60. Ordered that up, should be here in a couple days. Got a new chain for it and should be a quick little mock-up. I think I'm gonna get the frame at least welded up in the right place, and then once the sprocket and chain come in, I can get the motor plate lined up where I want it, get that all welded up, line it up, throw some tires on it. Should be a quick little build, get it all back together. What's going on, guys? So I'm pretty sure I left off with the go-kart kind of mocked up in place, kind of getting a rough idea where everything's gonna look. I ended up running to the store and picking up some pipe that was the same size as the go-kart frame, and then I also bought some pipe that was the same size as the inner diameter of each pipe. And I got the frame to this point here, got everything all welded up in place. So I ended up just making some like slugs that slipped inside of the frame on each side of these pipes here, and then I just plug welded it on each side, front and back, all the way around. And then I just welded these seams up, so everything's super strong. Got a little support brace in the middle, so everything's looking pretty good so far. Got another bar chopped out there. I was gonna run 2 bars going this way, but I was gonna run in some interference with the chain and sprocket there, so I'm gonna run another pipe going this way, parallel with these 2 pipes on the side, just so the engine plate could sit on there and shouldn't have any problems with chain clearance. And it should look pretty good as well, so I'm gonna get that pipe all welded up. I actually just got the chain in the mail, so now that I get that pipe welded in, I get the engine plate mocked up, get an idea of where the chain's gonna be, and get that welded in. And then I'm still waiting on the sprocket. It should be here, I think 2 or 3 more days. So in the meantime, I'm gonna start working on the brakes. Since the brake cable is only like 24 inches long, I'm gonna have to move the master back. So I'm thinking about moving the master somewhere around here, and then I'm just gonna lengthen the rod from the handle there all the way to the master, and then I can just run the brake caliper right over to the mount where it was. And it should be pretty simple, so I'm gonna get working on that, get that all finished up, and I can start working on the brakes. What's up, guys? So it's actually been a few days since that last clip. Got the go-kart all finished up and was just waiting for the sprocket to come in. Finally got it to come in, got it installed on the go-kart. She's looking all good, got her all finished up. And since she's a roller again, I ended up kicking myself out, putting the Miata back in the garage, so it's all good. She's actually works now. But everything's looking good. I got that bar welded back in there, got that plate welded on, got the motor mounted, got the new sprocket installed. I think it's a 60 tooth, but that lined up perfectly, so everything's looking good there. Then I also redid the brakes, ended up moving the master back over here, and then I just took a long piece of all thread, running it all the way up, and then I just took a couple pieces of pipe and running it over it just to make it real strong, because when I was pulling on it, it did want to bend a little bit. But so do those pieces of pipe on there. I think I'm just gonna get a new piece of pipe that's actually the right size, so don't have 2 pieces sitting here. It kind of looks a little funky, but everything's pretty much ready to roll. And now that it's ready to roll, doesn't want to run right because I had that air filter kit on there, and I ended up jetting this thing out. And since I had the air filter on there, it kept wanting to hit the tire here. It had like a 1/4 inch of clearance, but whenever it would run, it just kept wanting to bounce and hit the tire. So I ended up just putting the stock filter back on. So I think I'm gonna have to rejet the carb and just tune it up a little bit before I take it for a rip. I ended up fixing up the tires as well, so I know the 2 back ones are good, but the 2 front ones, those ones are kind of shot. I'm gonna have to replace them in the future. I know both of these kind of have slight bubbles, so when you do see it riding and jumping a little bit in the front, don't worry about that. And then the steering's also a little floppy, so she's good. She'll rip. She'll do a couple good pulls. So once I get this thing running, I do want to strap you guys up on my chest cam, take this thing for a rip, see how she does. Hopefully this thing will actually drift and maybe get some good top speed runs, see how this thing goes. So I'm gonna get this thing tuned up and let's take her for a rip. All right, I think I got her tuned up pretty good. She still got a little hiccup whenever you like full punch it, like a dead stop, but you can kind of drive out of it. So let's take this thing for a rip, and if she's feeling good, I think we'll maybe do some drifts or maybe take this thing for a nice high speed test and see what her top speed's looking like. brake works. Will it drift? Alright. Okay. Alright. A little gripped up, but it's down. Oh, there's a car there. Brakes are good though. I really want to do a high-speed run, so let's see. Alright. You guys are watching that. Let's see how fast I go. I'm going to throw this in my pocket. Let's fucking go! I always wanted to hit 50 on something. Finally! Let's fucking go! Alright, now will she drift is the real question. See if she won't hiccup on me. Okay, drift! Let's see if I can drift this little section right here. I want to see if I can get some good donuts right here, but the thing is, this thing's really gripped up in the rear, so it's like it's wanting to hop the rear end. So let's see how this goes. Kind of send it. Oh, there's that spot. Oh, there it is. He's got it. Take it a little wider. Oh, no, 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 don't lose it. We're good, we're good. Alright, let's see if I can hit this real quick. Quick little. Oh, turn, turn. There we go, there we go. Woo! I don't think that the clutch likes it too much, but it's all good. Kind of hard to tell, but in these lines you can kind of see the tire like hopping in the line. But she's good. She's a fucking ripper, that's for sure. All right, so I wanted to get you guys a little POV, see what it's like when I drift this thing from the outside. Kind of get you guys an outside view, see this thing drifting around, and I've gotten pretty good at it. So as long as this thing doesn't hiccup on me or start hopping around, it should be pretty good. So let's get ripping. Hope you guys enjoyed those couple clips of me drifting around. This thing's kind of funny to watch because it's just hopping all over the place and kind of uncontrollable to a point, but I kind of got it down, and if anything, it just straightens out and grips up. But as you can tell, the tires are getting spanked already just from drifting around a little bit, but it's all good. I'm thinking about maybe getting some sleeves in the future so this thing can actually be like a full-blown drift cart, kind of lose all the grip in the back, but it's got a lot of power and a lot of weight, so it should at least get some grip. And with the sleeves on these carts are so fun, so that may be something to see in the near future. And if you guys have any ideas what I should do with this thing, maybe add some lights or maybe add some spoiler or something, leave them down below, so maybe I'll do it. But if you guys enjoy these like small engines and go-karts and mini bikes, I do have one more mini bike hiding under my shelf here at my desk, but it does need a little bit of work. And since I got a nice two-wheel mini bike, if you guys watch that series, got this thing all finished up, I'm thinking about maybe building this thing into a trike, so then I'll have a 2-wheel monster, a 3-wheel monster, and then I got the Gokart 4-wheel monster. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. Maybe we can get working on that soon, but I think I'm gonna start cleaning up all the garage since working on the Gokart made it such a mess. I got tools and kind of metal and shit everywhere. I'm gonna get this all cleaned up so I can start working on this thing. I want to get this thing on jack stands, get the motor pulled out since I finally ordered up the parts for the motor, so that should be ready to get dropped in there. So that'll be something you guys see next week. And I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, kind of restoring this thing, bringing it all back together, kind of giving it a whole new life. And if you did, I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.